Today on the Eat to Live podcast.
Stop talking about the microbiome already, because it's not just the microbiome that determines your health. It's one of the elements, yeah, but when you eat healthy, you have a good microbiome. When you eat healthy, you have a good brain, cellular concentration of nutrients. You have good balance of fatty acids. You have a good prevention of toxic buildup. It's not just the microbiome. So people think like, oh, the microbiome, that's it. That's what you have to have good to be in good health. Well, it's one of the things, but if you do everything right, your microbiome comes out good.
Hey, Eat to Live listeners, I'm here with my dad, nutritional researcher and medical doctor, Dr. Fuhrman.
Thank you, Jenna. Here with my daughter, Jenna. And this is the Eat to Live podcast.
Let's get into it. So I'm excited to talk about this topic because you were saying there was a lot of research that came out about the microbiome and gut health.
You know, it's like the hottest thing people are talking about. And it's almost like overly talked about. I'm like saying, stop talking about the microbiome already, because it's like, you know, it's not just the microbiome that determines your health. It's one of the elements, yeah, but when you eat healthy, you have a good microbiome. When you eat healthy, you have a good brain, cellular concentration of nutrients. You have good balance of fatty acids. You have a good prevention of toxic buildup. It's not just the microbiome. So people think like, oh, the microbiome, that's it. That's what you have to have good to be in good health. Well, it's one of the things, but if you do everything right, your microbiome comes out good. You know, so I don't want to overemphasize it, but we've got to talk about it because there's so much myths out there about the microbiome. We got to put this in perspective and make people understand the important points here.
So starting at the basics, what exactly is the microbiome?
It's just trillions of bacteria cells that live in our gut. Trillions,
Wow.
More cells in our gut of bacteria. We're teeming with bacteria. And it's both healthy bacteria and disease-causing bacteria already living inside of you.
Even me?
Yes, even you. Even
Wow.
we have bad bacteria and good bacteria living inside of us. And it's like I'm growing the carapia on my lawn, and it's such a tight plant that it's choking out the weeds. The weeds can't grow, so I don't have to keep weeding the carapia or put weed killer because it chokes it out. And having all the good bacteria from the healthy foods and a healthy immune system chokes out so the bad bacteria can't proliferate.
Wow.
But as you eat unhealthfully and the weeds, the bad bacteria start to proliferate, then you may get a pneumonia. Or you may get, and you didn't even catch it, you just got it. You know, where'd it come from? Well, we have bacteria that are all over the place. We're surrounded by bacteria. I'm not hyper crazy about washing my hands. I don't use those antiseptics. I'm not wearing masks because I'm exposed. I know we're all kinds of exposed to bad bacteria and bad viruses all the time. But the main defense is how healthy you keep your body and your immune system and how healthy you keep your microbiome, because you're never going to keep all bacteria and viruses out of your body. They're always going to be coming in, and you've got to have the defenses to keep yourself healthy.
Right.
You know.
Absolutely. So what are the best foods to keep this microbiome healthy? How do we do that?
That's the whole key, is that, you see, over the last 20 years, even like 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, people were saying, eat fermented foods, yogurt, kimchi, sauerkraut, to have a good microbiome.
Yes.
Or take probiotics, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's not where the literature and the research has led us at this point. What the research has led us is that the people with the healthiest microbiome that leads to the most disease protection, we'll talk about how that's related to immune function and brain function too, are people with the most diverse exposure to plant fibers and plant variety. And so it's all about plant food diversity leads to the healthiest microbiome and the health of the soil the plants are grown in. You can't take a pill, you can't take a probiotic to have as good of a microbiome as you or I, compared to us eating a mixture of plants grown in natural organic soils with microbes and fungi and insects in the soil. That gives us the healthiest microbiome.
Wow.
And that, you know how Americans are eating like just one type of banana, just the Cavendish banana. There's 500 varieties of variety. They eat one type of mushroom, just the white button mushrooms. There's hundreds of varieties of mushrooms. They eat one type of pine nut. There's thousands of varieties of pine nuts. The point I'm making is this, is that us Nutritarians recognize for many reasons to prevent cancer, not just the health of the microbiome, why we're trying to eat many different varieties of mushrooms. multiple varieties of nuts, multiple varieties of beans, multiple types of different fruits, and multiple types of different grains, and multiple types of different vegetables, and raw and cooked and onion. And we're trying to go after variety. And it's the variety of different plant foods, both the phytochemicals and the fiber variety, that leads to this microbiome with the most bacterial diversity. And bacterial diversity has the best effect on your health. And we can talk about how that works.
It's like strengthening your army from different sources. So you're saying don't just choose one lettuce. If you're hooked on romaine salad every day, mix up, like switch it, change it, rearrange the lettuces you're using because there's such a variety. So, which also...
With arugula and sprouts too.
Yeah.
Sprouts.
And there's even a ton of different sprouts. So
a ton of different sprouts, right.
You could also get really creative in your diet by changing it up. They all have subtle different tastes. And then they also have all different nutrients is what you're getting at, and bacteria.
And different fibers. Because each type of fiber grows a certain type of bacteria. And when you have a lot of different types of fiber, you grow multiple species of different types of bacteria. And that's multiple species of bacteria are most effective at preventing unhealthy bacteria from proliferating. The more species of healthy bacteria, the more they don't allow unhealthy bacteria to get a foothold in your gut. Yeah.
So I know there's some tips you have for how to ingest these fruits and vegetables. You always said that bloating, discomfort, if you have anything going on down there, what's the number one thing you could do to alleviate that?
Oh, that's a complicated question. Well, first of all, the immune system, because the microbiome and the immune system are intimately connected. They're like wound together because you have the epithelial cell lining, which is just one cell lining of the gut, right? And then you have bacteria over it, which slows the absorption of sugar through the gut wall. And those bacteria that are on top of the epithelial lining are eating up fibers and producing short-chain fatty acids and anti-inflammatory nutrients that are absorbed into the gut. So the bacteria produce nutrients absorbed into the gut.
Oh, wow.
And now the nutrients from the green vegetables you're eating fuel the growth of these healthy bacteria and simultaneously fuel the growth of the intraepithelial lymphocytes behind the villi. So right behind those cells are the major 70% of the immune system is lining the gut. So we have the bacteria and the intraepithelial lymphocytes that both grow healthy and robust in response to eating vegetables, particularly green vegetables. So you can't have a healthy immune system or a healthy gut without green vegetables. And green vegetables, including lettuce, which is the richest source of sulfoquinavose, which is the primary carbohydrate that bacteria love to eat to fuel healthy bacteria. Lettuce is a superfood. It keeps the biofilm connected, prevents leaky gut syndrome, keeps the epithelial cells and between those cells called a tight junction, keeps them glued together. So you don't get allergies and peptides going in between the cells. They're passed through the cell wall as opposed to squeaking through in between the cells because the healthy microbiome keeps that connectivity. At the same time, the other side of those cells, that villi lining, are the lymphocytes, lymphatic tissue. That's the defenders, the gates of the castle of our immune system that filters any toxins coming in, any viruses and bacteria that actually escape into the bloodstream are immediately attacked by our defenders of the gate. And you don't have a healthy immune system. You can't have a normal immune system unless you eat a high amount of green vegetables, particularly raw green matter. So you have to. So we're saying the same thing that builds the microbiome builds the immune system. That's right next to the microbiome. And listen to this: those cells that line the gut only live about 4 to 7 days. They slough off. We digest them. So we're all eating meat. We're eating the meat from our own body. We're chewing up those cells and redigesting them and making new cells. So the lining of the cells get broken up, right? So why don't we get chronic inflammation, chronic leaky gut, because the cell's just getting irritated, raw, inflamed, gastritis, colitis? Why are we? What protects that cell lining from being irritated? And then, of course, it's these healthy foods we're talking about, the healthy bacteria we're talking about that cover it and protect it, and chewing and mixing food with saliva, how well you chew. Because the saliva, this is what people don't recognize, and I want them to learn on this podcast, that saliva is the secret ingredient that produces the endothelial growth factors and the nitric oxide that protects for a healthy lining of your gut. And carbohydrates are good for us or bad for us? They're bad for us when we eat refined carbohydrates that go through but they're good for us when we eat carbohydrates that require lots of chewing and mixing with saliva. And then it produces these beneficial compounds, and including anti-inflammatory compounds, and it's compounds that keep the cells living longer and being able to replenish and grow well, and to replace the dead cells that are growing all the time. So the cells that are growing fastest in your body, your hair is growing faster, but even faster than your hair is growing, the cells lining the gut are the fastest growing cells in your body, and they need chronic nourishment. And the nourishment comes from the fiber breakdown of food and from the substances in saliva that we produce when we mix the bacteria in the mouth and between the teeth and the gums with the saliva. We produce more beneficial compounds, and we're not just digesting the carbohydrate in food better, we're breaking up cells, liberating nutrients, so the body works together in this seamless and integrated fashion to maximize our health.
Just a little side note, you've always said too that not only does chewing really well help ease bloating, constipation, any stomach problem, and fuel the growth of good bacteria in the microbiome, you also just said, side note, it helps your teeth.
It helps your teeth.
Which is like,
I mean, your gums and your teeth are not, if you're just drinking smoothies and drinks all day, you're not chewing. But you asked me the question about a person with bloating, right? Because that's really important. Because people are doing the opposite of what they should do. So let me explain, because let's talk about this for a little bit.
Okay.
First of all, there's a few things going on. If a person overeats, and they eat till fullness, they're going to surpass the enzymatic capacity of the digestive tract, and things are not going to be digested well because there's not enough digestive enzymes to a person who stretched out the stomach and ate too much food at one time. So number one, a major cause of indigesting and bloating is a person ate till fullness. They ate too much food. Number two, they didn't chew it well enough. And most people overeat and they don't chew well enough. And the major cause of gastritis, bloating, indigestion, it's all about bad diet and not chewing well. You know, when you're sucking down eggs and yogurt, you don't have to chew. But when you're eating so when you're eating a really healthy diet, a lot of plant matter, you really got to chew a lot. So people have to relearn the way they eat. They've got to learn a new way to eat. They got to keep the food in the mouth longer, really liquefy it. And we haven't been trained as youngsters that way. And it takes a lot of thought to really chew adequately, especially when you have bloating. Okay, the next thing, so I'm saying the person's overeating, and most Americans are overeating, and you can't get them eating the right amount of food. They're bloating because they're still overeating. Is this person anorexic? Are they underweight? No, they're usually still overweight because their perception of how many calories they need are influenced by what other Americans are eating. So because Americans eat more than double the calories they need, they think they're eating too little if they're eating so much less than everybody else, but they're still overeating for their digestive capacity. Mm-hmm. So they're overeating for their digestive capacity and they didn't chew well enough. That's the first thing. Okay. The next thing is it's hard to digest certain types of fibers, particularly in beans and nuts. Let's take beans, for example. They're hard to digest. But beans have the most resistant starch. And resistant starch is the most favored way to build the microbiome, to have these bacteria that coat the gut and prevent and slow the glucose absorption through the gut wall and produce fatty acids. Okay. So they avoid beans because they don't want to feel good. And now that makes the digestion get worse because now they don't have the bacteria to digest beans. So now there's a vicious cycle. They don't eat foods that they have difficult digesting, like the FODMAPs diet. It's the worst thing you can do is the FODMAPs diet.
Really?
Avoid these foods that are difficult for you to digest because then you're going to digest them even worse in the future. We got to build a healthy microbiome.
It's like building a tolerance.
Yes, it's building the right bacteria to improve digestion. We take those foods away, it gets worse. Now you can only eat eggs and zucchini or something and mushroom, it gets worse. So here's the treatment. Instead of giving people a lot of beans at one time, give them 1 tablespoon of beans with every meal 3 times a day, but below the level which they're going to have too much bloating. But if they have no beans, it's not going to build them, not going to improve them. So maybe this person should have 2 tablespoons of black lentils, chickpeas, or azuki beans, 2 teaspoons with each meal, to the point where they can comfortably have a tablespoon of each meal without forming too much gas or too much bloating.
This is where you could gradually add more beans to your diet over time. Over
time, they can handle 2 tablespoons with the meal. Okay, so beans have the most richest source of resistant starch. And then you can enhance the richest source, the resistant starch in the potato, white potato, let's say, by making it cold in the refrigerator, increases resistant starch. So they could have some cold potato to build more resistant starch. That's easy for them to digest, not eating too much beans. So having a little bit of beans, then they have the green vegetables, the zucchini, the string beans, with some lettuce. Now they say, I can't handle raw vegetables, raw carrots and raw lettuce. I can't handle, Okay, that's going to make you worse because the lettuce has the richest source of sulfoquinavos to build back the gut. So they have to have the lettuce 3 times a day with breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So here's what I'm saying now. Some lettuce, some raw greens, maybe some raw onion, because raw onions have the incredible effect on building back the bacteria in the gut. Maybe some cooked mushroom, and a little bit of bean, most importantly, a little bit of bean, 3 times a day below the level of, and then if they do that long enough, they can improve their microbiome if they chew super well and they undereat calories, calorically restrict. And we're talking about people who are not going to be anorexic. They're overweight anyway. They can comfortably caloric restrict. They can put their caloric window down to the point that they're not going to bloat. If they bloated, then they're still overeating. Or they're eating unhealthy. Now, let's say this person thinks they're a Nutritarian, but they have a bagel once or twice a week. Well, or they have some oil in their diet. The white flour is so destructive to the lining of the gut, and the cooked oil is so destructive to the lining of the gut that even once a week can prevent them from healing and increase their exposure to mold. Because there's mold or mycotoxin in flour, even whole wheat flour. And the bagel, being white flour, is like eating straight sugar, which decreases healthy bacteria, feeds unhealthy bacteria, and produces yeast form in the guts. Yeast form in the gut, mold and yeast in the gut. So that white flour, one bagel, I'm eating so healthfully. It's not a big deal. I have 1 piece of white bread a week. I have 1 bagel a week, 1 chocolate chip cookie a week. Otherwise, I'm being perfectly healthy. They're not going to get their gut. They're not going to get the gut back healthy again. The little bit of cheating. And this is where you and I have this thing going on back and forth, where I'm seeing these people, because I'm seeing people who are eating super healthy still have a heart attack, let's say. But because they have these little bit of cheats that added up because their genetics, they didn't eat healthy their whole life, and they have some other genetic risk factors, like small particle size or lipoprotein A.
Right.
And the little bit of cheating was enough to create the disease. They needed to do it 100%. Well, and it's the same thing here. When the person has this problem with mold and bloating and all this stuff, even having 1 serving of pizza a week or 1 serving of bagel a week or 1 cookie or cake a week or 1, just a little bit is enough to screw up their healing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, as you know, we have a guest that's very near and dear to our hearts who fought in the Vietnam War, and he got a lot of exposure to Agent Orange, which we know increases heart disease, heart attack, heart risk. So even though he eats a Nutritarian diet, he has no room to have unfavorable foods. So
no room for error.
He is like, on this mission to not get a heart attack again. And yeah, very proud of him. But what I'm hearing throughout this whole podcast about the microbiome is you are just doubling down on your diet, because you're saying you're talking about all the science, how we could really help our immune system, our gut health, everything by eating raw vegetables. And a lot of the vegetables you're listing are salad. Like salad is the main dish. You are saying eat a salad every single day for a healthy microbiome.
With some raw cruciferous and include some sprouts in there.
Mm-hmm.
And we can build back a microbiome better than taking a pill.
Right.
And I still recommend probiotics for people who have taken antibiotics or who had some gut issue that have to be helped with. But for most of us, we don't need probiotics. We need to eat healthy. You can't build back the most healthy probiotic milieu as much as you can by eating a healthy diet. And if you're going to take the pill, you got to do both then.
And to revisit our debate, which in case the listeners don't know, I do feel like we're meeting somewhere in the middle, because you advocate going 100% overnight and kicking all your unhealthy habits to the curb.
Right.
And I advocate maybe small changes to get you there, small changes each week.
Maybe not 100%. Move there in a slower direction.
Start making healthier choices.
Right.
And I think we both come...
And I'm disagreeing with that.
Yeah, and we both come from a place where we both enjoy how we eat so much. But you are saying to some people, add beans in your diet slowly, add fiber to your diet slowly. So you're not like, we know some people might be running to the bathroom if they all of a sudden have this extra fiber. So what is the recommendation there? If I have been eating the standard American diet, I'm in bad shape, I'm belching, I have very bad constipation and bloating and...
Okay. My recommendations are still go 100% to a Nutritarian diet, because we do it every day. As you know, people to retreat, to come from a bad diet to a good diet, they have no problem. It's 1 out of 30 people, 1 out of 50 people that have to go slowly. Right. Because of some indigestion problem or sodium drops too low or something. It's not common. So the person doesn't need to go slowly. But if it's a person who has a problem with going that fast, then we could go more slow. But I'm saying a lot of people with a problem with digestion, they exclude all the foods they don't digest well, that they would better off still include them in their diet, right? Right. But now the other issue is now some people have trouble making the switch 100%, and this is an art. And there are individuals who might do better making the change more slowly psychologically too. So of course, there's no black and white, right or wrong here. It's what's best for the individual. And I'm just saying a lot of people where it's don't fool around, you might as well just jump in and get everything fixed as fast as you can. Yeah, because, I come into contact with people every single day in my life who I'm trying to make healthier choices. And my husband, Jacob's a good example, which Jacob comes from a background, ate pretty well, probably better than most Americans. He really likes vegetables, but he's still learning a lot. Yeah. And just last week, I wanted to mention, because you brought it up, he's like, I just don't feel good when I'm full. Like I feel really good when I eat 80% full. And then I feel like I have increased energy. I hit the gym harder. Right. So that just hit the nail on the head. I'm like, isn't it wild that you feel like once you find the right amount of food for your body, that you feel so much better, even when you're choosing the right food. So it really is important, even for me, who I've been eating this way for a long, long time, my whole life, the second I overeat, and it happened to me last night because it was Thanksgiving, I started getting acid reflux. And, I'm like, oh, I hate that. It still is an art to get it right. And you're not 100% perfect all the time, but with the knowledge, you can make decisions to make it really good a lot of the time. So I just think it's terrific. Yeah. And that's right. You are the artist scientist of your own body. And you've got to figure out, what's your right caloric window? What's the best diet for you? We're giving you information to make the best choices. And now it's up to you to put it into action and figure out what works best for you. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little tidbit on the microbiome and gut health. Thanks for listening.